Yeah, 3 days. So from Sunday to 8:36 a.m. on Wednesday, I was in labor. Okay, it's time. It's time that I tell my birth story. I'm 9 months postpartum and I'm ready. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Birthing in Faith, the podcast for Black Christian women. My name is Imani Fitch. I am your host today and every day. But this is actually my season finale episode, and I'm so grateful to have gotten through the first season of my first podcast. And I appreciate everyone that has listened so far and everyone who will listen in the future. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Um, but yes, on today's episode, I wanted to round off this season with my birth story. Birth stories are so important to me. One of the main reasons why I got into birth work and decided on the ways that I wanted to have my birth as a first time mom was because I watched birth videos, all different types of birth videos, but especially positive birth videos during my pregnancy. That was one of the main things that I did to keep a positive vision in my mind of what I desired and what I prayed for. And so, on that note, I just want to give y'all a backstory. I have notes, so you'll see my phone here. As you may or may not know, I became pregnant in July 2023. At the same time, my mom had a major surgery to remove cancer from her body, and so my pregnancy was very, very enjoyable physically, but emotionally and mentally, I was really not in tune with my pregnancy as much as I would have liked to be. 2 months before I had my baby, my mom passed away. And so that meant that a lot of my preparation that I had originally planned to do way back over the years, I wasn't able to really dive in as much as I wanted to. So I had to really focus on a few things. Um, that was like being physically um, active on a regular basis and my mindset. So I used the Christian hypnobirthing app and I loved it. Love, love, love it. I highly recommend it to anybody. I will link the information in the description, and there's also an affiliate code if you are interested in their childbirth education class. But I use the Christian hypnobirthing app for mindset and meditation and affirmations. I also wrote my own affirmations, and I worked on my breathing. So those are the main ways that I prepared. I had a doula and I did a childbirth education class because I had a birth center birth. And if you've never had a birth center birth, they require their childbirth education class. And despite being a doula myself, a childbirth educator, and a registered nurse, that is a labor and delivery nurse, I still took all the typical measures because it's my first baby. So, with all that to say, I did not have any fear going into labor. I will say that I had apprehensions. I just really wasn't sure if I was going to be able to have a natural birth. That was my main thing. I didn't know if I was going to be able to be unmedicated. You already don't know 100% if you will be a candidate for the birth center's birth. Like if you have a medical issue that they are not qualified to, um, like to manage, like gestational diabetes or preeclampsia, then you would have to transfer to a hospital. But I really was not sure if I qualified for a birth center birth, but I was I going to mentally be able to handle it. Um, and so yeah, those are my honest apprehensions going into throughout my pregnancy. And so I went into labor on, I'm gonna say this flat out, I was in labor for 3 days. From the beginning, my early labor contraction started to when I had my baby was 3 days. So let's get into it. Basically, my contraction started on a Sunday, and I was 39 weeks. I think I was 39 weeks in one day. And so my due date was on the 30th. I actually did not want to have my baby on my due date or before. because I have a lot of March birthdays in my life. And I just felt like it was too much. I wanted my daughter to be born in April. I was okay with like going past my due date. So when I started having contractions, I was like in disbelief. The night before, so Saturday night, me and my husband, we went to a birthday dinner for my friend. It was like a really fun time. It was the first time in a while that I had been out with friends and just laughing and celebrating. And so I really think that the oxytocin from that night affected my labor. And so on Sunday, when I was at church, I had been having Braxton Hicks for months. I tried to get out of jury duty at 8 weeks, trying to say I had Braxton Hicks. I was having contractions, but they weren't having that. But yeah, I was having Braxton Hicks, and I told my best friend at church that I felt like they were just really consistent and that it might be labor. And my best friend was like, "Are you keeping track of them?" And I was like, "No, like I'm not worried about it. I'm not in labor." So I went about my day. That day, my sister and I had plans to go to lunch. And so at the same time, I felt like I was not feeling baby move as normal. And being a nurse, like, that's something I don't play about. So I called up the midwife on call and I said, like, hey, this is what's going on. Is it cool if I come to get a check after I finish eating? Because, of course, you want to be hydrated and fed before you get on the monitor to make sure that it's not that's causing the baby to not move as much. But she was like, yeah, of course, like whenever you're done, let me know and I'll head there and meet you. So my sister and I, we ate, we had lunch, and then she drove me to the birth center and my husband met us there. And so I would get on the monitor and I can see that I'm having contractions, like they're showing up. So I'm really excited and I'm like, you guys, I'm in labor. But I wasn't getting like, too excited, but I just was like, wow, this is actually happening. It's funny though, at the same time, someone was in labor and we could hear her screaming. And
Sounds like she's pushing though. She's probably
I'm
pushing.
grateful that like I already know the sounds of labor because that probably would have scared me, but she was like had to be pushing or really close to pushing. So I prayed for her because I just know that that's a whole nother beast. So, yeah, on the monitor, it was showing that I was dehydrated. So my midwife gave me a bolus is about a liter of fluids at a rapid rate, and so that really helped baby's heartbeat come up. Baby started moving again, and it was all normal. Told me to go home, of course. And on Monday, I was feeling crampy. Like for my period, I do get cramps, and I would say that they're about a 5 out of 10 on the scale of pain. So my period cramps are pretty painful, but these were like a 3. These contractions, but they were like low in my belly, and they were crampy, and I was having some little loose poops, and so I was like, okay, these are some signs. But the crazy thing is that Monday was also my youngest sister's birthday and her grandma's birthday. So I was like, ain't no way my baby's being born on this day. Like that would be crazy. And if it's a girl, that would be crazy. So I'm just chilling. My sister's with me, my husband's with me. We're just chilling. I started to feel like resting was getting hard. So I called my doula. I said, hey, like I'm feeling what I believe is early contraction cramps. Can you come? And I just wanted her TENS machine, to be honest. Like the TENS machine, I knew was gonna like help me feel distracted from the discomfort of these little cramps. And so she came over, she put the TENS machine on me, and I was like, hey, you can go. I'm just gonna go to sleep. And she was like, no, I'm gonna stay around. So I took a nap, and she hung out. And when I woke up, we started to, get to it as far as trying to keep the progression of labor. I remember that we we walked, did curb walking. I did squats. I was on the birth ball. We put the my pumps on me, y'all. I have set up a breast pump for so many women, before in the hospital. I know how to use them, but I didn't know how to use them. I didn't know how to use them on myself, and I didn't know what the numbers were for. I didn't realize that I didn't know what I was doing. If that makes sense. Like I just didn't know how to do it for myself. So my doula talked me through all of that, and yeah, the whole point was to just get these contractions to come longer and stronger. During that time, we also put together my sitz bath herbs. She has a whole like herb box that she knows what each one is for. Like if you're in low key crunchy, she's the doula for you. And then we also use some clary sage. Clary sage is an essential oil that, like, when you use as massage oil or you smell it and inhale it, it helps to bring on contractions. So we had my husband give me a belly massage with the clary sage oil. That was really nice. Yeah, that was just, it was like a slow, like casual, but semi-active day. And then Monday night, we were on the couch just again chilling, trying to keep that oxytocin flowing. And we watched the show on Netflix called Love on the Spectrum. And we really like that show. It's just a feel good show. So I think around 10 or 11, I started to like get tired again. So I went up to sleep. My doula just stayed on the couch. She said, "Hey, I'm here." She was so certain that baby was coming that night. And when I started to lay down, I think I was able to sleep for like an hour, and then the contractions started to intensify. And they were really intense when I was laying down. They weren't really sporadic, but they weren't regular. It was weird. And then I was using my Christian hypnobirthing app and just listening to those affirmations and breathing tracks. I was on the toilet sometimes just trying to cope, honestly, with the contractions. I would say that they were like a good 6, 7 out of 10. So at that point, I wanted to call the midwife and go in just to see what was going on. So I think it was like 5 a.m. We call, and the midwife is like, "Yeah, come on in. I'll meet you there." We go on the monitor to get an NST. Baby looks good. I am contracting. So then the midwife asks if I want to have a cervical check. Side note, and this is the beauty of a birth center. If you've never heard of or heard about a birth center birth, there is so much power and like autonomy that is placed on the mother, and I personally love that and I desire that. Like, but my midwife asked me, "Do you want a cervical check?" And I said yes. She said, "Do you want to know?" And originally my plan was not to know because I just felt like it wouldn't be helpful for me mentally. But this time I felt like there were decisions in the balance, so I said I wanted to know. And y'all, I was 1 centimeter. I sat up. I took a deep breath and I said, "Well, okay, if I'm only 1 centimeter, I'm gonna need something." And when I said I'm gonna need something, because obviously I'm in a birth center, I'm not getting an epidural. I'm not planning to get an epidural, but there are pain options in a birth center, such as nitrous oxide or gas and air, you might call it. But there's also something called therapeutic rest, which is a shot in your muscle. It's a combination of medications that give, especially in early labor, that give really good pain relief and help you go to sleep. It can be given in active labor, but it's just not as effective. It kind of just makes you feel disconnected, kind of like what nitrous oxide, that heady feeling, but it doesn't. Yeah, it just works the best in early labor. So I said, let me just get that and let me get on, because it was around 7 in the morning. I didn't want to have to come back in the middle of the day in Atlanta traffic. So she gave me the shot, and she also talked to me about other forms of relief, like the chiropractor or the massage therapist. I was just like, that's too much variability for possibly having to still come back and get a shot. So I'm gonna go with the shot. And I'm telling you, by the time I got in the car, I was feeling it, and I was comfortable. I was very comfortable. So I went home and I knocked out. I was asleep. I still woke up and went to the bathroom and was drinking water during that time, but for the most part, I was asleep, and I was so grateful. So around 3, I woke up and I was a little groggy, but I was up. And my sister had bought some breakfast from my favorite place, and I ate my French toast and just chilling with my family, still waiting for the contractions to progress. They had really fizzled out for the most part. I was not uncomfortable. Truly, I was feeling like little cramps, but they weren't nothing. The evening started to come, and yeah, like I was just trying to get in positions, do things to help bring the baby come. I was on all fours a lot on the ball, um, doing some lunges and some squats, and watching more Love on the Spectrum, just some feel good shows. And I truly was exhausted. Like, one thing about labor that people don't talk about is how much your body is doing without you physically doing it. And so it's exhausting, very. Um, and that's going to be another conversation that we have to have about this whole not eating in labor is ridiculous. Like, how can you run a marathon without any fuel? Anyway, I headed up to bed around 10 o'clock, and I think I rested about 2 hours, and the contractions started to pick up again. Around 11:30, they were coming, and I think around midnight, I couldn't lay down anymore. There was one contraction that came, like, it was strong. It was so strong. I like rolled out of my bed onto all fours and like screamed, "Help me!" I looked at my husband and he was asleep. He did not hear me. So I like crawled. I crawled to the bathroom and I got on the toilet and I just sat there on the dilation station, backwards on the toilet, put a pillow on the top of the toilet thing, and put my head down and just let the contractions come. I know from my training, the toilet is somewhere that I recommend, like my clients, try to tell my patients, like, hey, sit on the toilet to help the the baby come down so you can dilate. And that was my goal. And so I was on the toilet for like, maybe, I don't know, I think I was on the toilet for like an hour. But it's funny because our toilet seat was broken, and I had bought another one, but we didn't put it on. So in the middle of the night, I woke my husband up and I said, you need to change this toilet seat. And he was like, are you serious? Like, in the middle of the night? I said, absolutely yes. So I went to the guest bathroom and then came back into and got right back in my seat. And I would say it was around 3 when I told him, call my doula. Like, I need her here. I need help. He was providing me with like hip squeezes. Hip squeezes were everything, but it was just tough for me. I needed more than just hip squeezes. I needed the full support, and I needed to not be the one thinking about what I needed. So she came, and I had moved from the toilet to our bedroom, and she was trying so hard. It's funny how the doula or the nurse is like the worst patient, because she would ask me like, hey, I think you should do this position. I was like, no, can't do it. But honestly, the contractions at this point they were very frequent and very intense and very long. They were like a minute and a half to 2 minutes long, every contraction coming like from every 3 to 7 minutes. Like, I was not getting a break. By the time I think it was like 5 or 6, I was like, I was coping, but I was at the point where I was like, this is labor. Like, this is real labor. And it was to the point where I was really, really worried about traffic for the drive to the birth center. And one thing I was scared of, I know I mentioned that I had no fear, but I had no fear of birth, right? I had fear about other things. So one of the things I was afraid of was the drive, like how I would endure with no hip squeezes, no ability to change my position in the car. And so I called the midwife on call and I was like, hey, can I come in? Basically, this seems like real life. They get everything together in the car again. And I'm just like, Lord, please help me. Please help me on this commute, because I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know how I'm going to cope, because breathing is already just hard enough. And so I put on my Christian hypnobirthing tracks in my AirPods, and I got in the car. It took 20 minutes to get there. Let me tell you, it was like I only felt 3 contractions the whole ride. I don't know if I had more than that, but that was all I felt, and they were not bad. They were like a 3 out of 10. I could breathe through them. I'm so grateful to God. That is one of my biggest like memories from that time, is how one of my big fears was pacified in real time. So we get to the birth center and slowly make it in, and um, another fear I had was getting there, getting checked, and then being told that I was not in labor, and that at that point I was like, if in my mind I was like, if I'm not in labor, take me to Grady so I can get an epidural. I was dead serious. In my mind, I had that made up. So we go to triage, and the midwife like puts me on the monitor again. Baby's looking good, and I am tolerating it. The contractions are definitely showing up. She asked me if I want to be checked. I said yes. She asked me if I want to know, and I said again, like I need to know. I have decisions to make based on what my what I'm what my dilation is. And so when she said I was 5, I was like, so can I stay? I was so like, let me be sure that I'm staying. I don't know. I used to work at this birth center, so it's funny that I couldn't remember like how what the cutoff was for admission or not. And she was like, yes, yes, we're gonna get the room ready for you. And it was really special because this is the same midwife that was there on Sunday um, when I went and got fluids. And she also was one of the midwives that cared for me when I had a miscarriage. And so this is my rainbow baby, and she has been there for me in so many capacities. When we worked together, we had some amazing births together. And so it was like such divine appointment that she would be there for me as I was being admitted for labor. And the birth center was empty. There are 3 rooms: water, earth, and fire. I wanted water, so I got my pick, and I was so grateful for these little yeses. I felt like these were little yeses from God, and I was just really grateful. Um, so we get in the room, and I'm so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable. Um, Everyone is tired. My sister is like, I don't even know how she made it to the birth center because she was so tired. But I'm telling you, my husband and my doula worked overtime to help me in my time of need. They were doing hip squeezes like nobody's business, tag teaming on them too. But yeah, so I went in the shower, like let the hot water just mm, come all over me, so that I can, continue to progress, stay upright. And I also needed another bolus of fluids because I had been throwing up and using the bathroom, not being able to drink as much. So I was dehydrated. So I had another bolus of fluids. And then I also had to get antibiotics because I was GBS positive. So by that time, I think it was about 6:30, and I was in the shower. They gave me the antibiotics in my IV, took the IV out. Another great benefit of birth center. But I was in the shower, and it felt really good. It felt better, but then I just felt this this feeling. I had to drop down, and I knew that urge was like that urge to push. And I squatted, and I was so scared to squat because I did not want to get stuck there and have the baby in the shower. Nothing wrong. I'd have my baby wherever. I was ultimately open, but I really wanted a water birth. And so when I squatted down, I was just like, I told my doula, like, call the midwife. Like, I feel like I have to push. So she came in, and she was like, we can get the tub ready. And I was like, yes, please get the tub ready. So when they started filling the tub, and she asked if I wanted to have my cervix checked again, just to see where I was, still active labor, or is this transition? So I said, yeah, that's fine. I slowly made it to the bed, and she checked my cervix. I was 9.5 centimeters. Like, my active labor was so short compared to the early labor. So yeah, I came in at 5, and within an hour and a half, I was 9.5 centimeters. So I got in the tub, and even that was just a bizarre feeling. It felt so much better, but it was weird. I remember I got in the water and I was like, oh, I think my water broke. I think my water broke. And so they came in with checking in on the baby, but I labored in the tub and my husband got in. I was so grateful that he wanted to get in the water because that was my desire. He was like right behind me, holding me up and encouraging me, massaging me. And then my doula was outside the tub doing hip squeezes sometimes or giving me water or whatever. My sister was in charge of reading off my affirmations and just praying over me. She was in charge of the playlist and setting the atmosphere. And then my cousin, my little cousin, she goes to Spelman and she wants to be OBGYN. So I said, I really want you to be at my birth if you can, because I'm just like, if you want to be an OBGYN but you've never seen a natural untouched birth, like, no, you have to see it if you can. So yeah, she came in and she was in charge of like getting the footage with my camera or my phone, whatever. And so I had like the dream team with me. I definitely was in transition and I definitely had the urge to push, but it was the weirdest feeling. It just did not feel good. I would hear a lot of people say they liked pushing because it felt like something that they could actually control and they were doing. But for me, it just felt like I had a bowling ball in my belly and I had to push it down. Like it didn't compute. It didn't make sense. So I was just, all my techniques and my pushing videos that I had watched, like all the practice I even did, went out the window and I was just pushing. I pushed on and off for probably like an hour. It wasn't like continuous. It was just as I felt the urge, as I felt the contractions. By the time, like at that time, it was actually shift change for my midwife, but she stayed, so I had 2 midwives with me instead of like a midwife and a nurse, like usual. So yeah, I'm going through it. Like, it's amazing how the body and the mind forgets, because at this point right now, I do not remember how hard it was, how tough it was. Like, and honestly, at 9 months postpartum, I would say that early postpartum newborn phase was harder to me than labor. So I don't know if that's true or I just forgot. Yeah, I was pushing and I noticed when the midwife went from like just casually like, yeah, good job, giving me affirmations to like getting stuff ready. So I knew I was close, but I also was like, I was going through it. There was one point I looked at the midwife and I'm just like, help me. And she's like, you're doing great. You're doing fine. You're doing it. I felt crazy, but it's labor land. It's the reality of labor. But yeah, I was pushing and I thought, I was like, oh, I'm so close. Like, I can't believe I'm not feeling the ring of fire. 2 minutes later, I felt that ring of fire. That was wild. But it was all manageable. Like, I was just breathing and giving it my all. Like, I'm still in awe of the whole process. But they're giving time, like I was pushing and I hear, that was the head, and in the next contraction your baby's gonna be born. And I just pushed and my baby came out into my hands so fast and I was in shock. Like, my eyes were bugged out. I was just like, what? I did it. I'm telling y'all, I didn't fully comprehend if I was gonna be able to do it. I'm an advocate for natural birth. I'm an advocate for birth center and home birth and the beauty of birth. Unmedicated. Like, I know women can do it, but I didn't know if I could do it. And when I did, I was just praising God. I was just stunned. And like one of my favorite worship songs came on afterwards. Like, it was a beautiful time. Beautiful, beautiful time. I'm so grateful. And we didn't know the gender until my baby was born. And so it felt like 10 minutes, but I think like 2-3 minutes later, we looked and we found out we had a girl. A girl? A girl. It's a girl. And it was honestly, like it was a birth of her, but it's also the birth of me in a new way. Like I couldn't believe I did that. Yeah, 3 days. So from Sunday to 8:36 a.m. on Wednesday, I was in labor. And that's my birth story. I am literally still in awe that happened. I am beyond grateful for the experience, the positive pregnancy, the positive birth experience with my rainbow baby in the midst of the hardest season of my life. So much fear of even will my baby survive experiencing a miscarriage in the past, and 3 years of trying to conceive and wrestling with these fertility issues, or like doubting and wondering if having a baby like from my body is even what God desires for my life and for our family. Wrestling through doubts and uncertainty, and working really, really hard to have hope day after day after day, just giving it up to God every single day, every single moment, like to experience His grace like that in birth was so beautiful and so redemptive. Although it was really hard work, it showed me so much about myself, um, that I don't just talk the talk, I can walk the walk, which is funny because one of like our my husband and I, our ongoing jokes is how much I can just talk a big game pretty much, and so like yeah, I'm so grateful, and so thank you for um, being interested and invested in and not only my journey, but like also I hope that this brings encouragement and hope to even anyone listening who may want to experience a birth this way, and never even knew about it. So as far as Birthing in Faith goes, season 2 will be coming out in a month. So go ahead and subscribe or follow. You definitely want to be notified for first episode of season 2. You definitely want to be notified of that. In the meantime, go ahead and follow me and check us out on TikTok and Instagram at Confident Care Birth Co. I would love to hear what y'all would like to hear about in the next season to come. I already have interviews scheduled with amazing birth workers, amazing women who are giving their testimony and birth stories, of the things that they have walked through, because pregnancy and birth, postpartum even, it's not a cakewalk. We all have things that we go through. And so there will definitely be interviews coming out about that. And then I will also be talking more about building your birth team and bringing you solo shows with Q&As, and bringing out more information about these professionals who are there to help you prepare for birth and succeed in postpartum. So I am really excited about the next season, and I hope you all will enjoy it as well. And I also have some resources, some free resources for any women who are trying to conceive. I have a 7-day prayer journal that is birthed out of my trying to conceive journey and how I really walked through it with the Lord. And so if you're interested in that, check out my website. And I also have my free doula interview guides for when you're interviewing these doulas and the people who are going to be supporting you. Like my doula was fire. But I interviewed doulas and all of them were fire actually, but we had to choose the one that was going to be the one for us in that moment. So how do you know if a doula is a good fit for you? Check out the doula interview guide to help you with that decision. But that's all I have for right now. All right, love y'all. See you in the next season.